You are watching or listening to Strangers in Space Oddity, and for the next 60 minutes, we're going to be talking about David Bowie, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
Hi, I'm Harry.
I'm Ian.
I'm John.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Simon.
And we're missing Steve. Steve was going to be with us on this, but Steve didn't make it, so Steve. All right. Right. We've got a lot to get through. We have each individually nominated our five favorite David Bowie songs in order of preference. And so the bulk of this conversation is basically us going to be talking about why we like those particular songs. But before we get to that, I think we should each just say what our introduction to Bowie was, or what Bowie means to us. Maybe we'll keep the Bowie thing, what he means to us, till the end, I guess. But what was our introduction to Bowie? And in order that the six of us don't carry on for about 2.5 hours on this podcast, for the sake of anybody on video, I've got an egg timer, which I'm going to be holding up, which is to keep everybody to a 58.7 seconds that they've got sand in the egg timer so that we don't run too long. But I'm not going to I'm not going to police it too stringently. Let's go round in a circle. I'll do mine first because I'm the Bowie skeptic on this podcast. So essentially, I'll be hosting for the rest of you to have a bit of a love in. I bought Changes 1, apparently. I thought it was just called Changes. I didn't realize it was called Changes 1 until I looked it up earlier this afternoon. In, I don't know, about 1983. I think I bought it in our local Woolworths, which would be in Dawlish, and it probably cost about £2. I've got to say, I thought two of the tracks on there were absolutely excellent. I was always weirdly wondering why Starman hadn't made the cut, seeing as that came out pretty early in his career, and I even then I knew that Starman had been an early single, so why it was missing from this, I don't know. The rest of the album, I was like, yeah, it's. I mean, I can sort of see that he's got this really charismatic voice and that the instrumentation is quite nicely done. But to be honest, I was kind of just a little bit left cold by it. I mean, I enjoyed it well enough, but I never was wild about Bowie. And later on, when it went to CD, I bought that double CD set with about 40 tracks on, of which I think most of them are pretty good, and some of them are dull as anything, wild as the wind. I have no idea why that song ever made it to any kind of record ever. I hope it's not on anybody's list. But that's
Nina
me.
Simone's rolling in her grave at you.
That's me. I bought Changes back in 1983 or whatever, then the CD version, I don't know, a decade or so later. I've always enjoyed Bowie, but I've never been like a mad Bowie fan. So let's go round in a circle. I mean, for the sake of it, let's stick to the alphabet. So in that case, I'll start with you, Harry. What was your first experience of David Bowie?
So anyone knows who knows me will know that I'm a huge Pet Shop Boys nutcase, and they collaborated with him in
Oh,
1990.
somebody's thunder has just been well and truly stolen.
And they did a collaboration with him in 1996 called "Hello Space Boy," which is one of his album tracks that they remixed to become a single. A few years later, when I went away to school. Bowie was very much what people were listening to, and there was a very, very good record shop in the town, and I used to go and be recommended albums by the record shop owner, and if you didn't like it, you could take it back, and he'd swap it for another one if it wasn't quite what you're looking for. So it was just through discovering hodgepodge, no particular order, just albums that I liked the look of, and albums that were recommended to me, and yeah, I was very taken by it.
Oh. And so
Mm.
you kind of basically got into Bowie as a,
As a sort of teenager
yeah.
from about the age of 14.
Oh, but what I mean is you're way more into Bowie than I am.
Yeah,
Don't
but
think there's
not
anybody.
all. But I think, not all Bowie, I would say. I don't.
Oh, that's fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, because
Mm.
that's quite an important distinction, isn't it? Ian,
Mm.
what was your first Bowie experience?
Well, so as a child of the 80s, I was kind of aware of him in the background musically, but it was his kind of terrible period, I guess. Right up until like Tin Machine and stuff. But my first real memory of Bowie as a kind of cultural presence was when my friend James and I got barred from Playhouse Video Shop in Colchester because they were playing the video to Dancing in the Street, and we were just having absolute hysterics at how preposterous every second of that video was. And we were removed from the store. I went to university. I fell in with people who liked Bowie. Bowie became something I would listen to, seek out, and over time, I came to realize that a lot of it was really brilliant.
Fair enough. Let me ask another question before we get any further. Have we all seen Bowie live? So nods and shakes of head is pretty much no good on an audio version of this
I
podcast.
have.
No.
Yes.
I have.
I
Only the
haven't.
once, but I've seen him.
Yeah,
Oh, so
I thought-
Simon, Harry, and Ian have, but John and Ryan haven't.
Oh, I
Yeah.
haven't.
Oh,
Tried to
so
get in at
only
Hendon.
so we're a 3-3 split. And as the Bowie skeptic, I feel really guilty now for having seen Bowie live when 3 of you fans haven't. And I'm going to be holding that over the rest of you for the entire rest of this podcast. Meanwhile, John, what was your first experience of the Bowie?
Well, exactly like Ian, I knew him in the 80s when he was just this showbiz goon in the background. It's just slightly too late for, Let's Dance with Modern Love. It was the terrible kind of acting. He was Labyrinth, he was all that. And then it got to the early kind of 90s. I went to university, and my girlfriend of the time had changes on tape in her car. So it was the complete when it ran from, Space Oddity up to, I think it was some
Golden
Blue
Years.
Jeans. So,
Golden
Yeah, so-
Year. The first changes.
oh, it was
or-
a tape. I think it had both the things on them.
Oh,
so it was
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so I essentially taped that off it, and also Sound of the Suburbs it was. And it was through the back half. It was great. So I knew the singles, I had that. And then when I got the job and started the money, I went, oh, everything's coming out on CD. So that's when I really got into Bowie, got into the back catalogue, went right through it. And obviously I ended up, at your suggestion, editing a book on him.
I'd forgotten all about that. Thanks for bringing it up. You can plug that at the end of the podcast if you like.
Oh, well, still
I
do.
certainly won't remember, so you'll have to remind everybody that we're going to do it. Ryan, what was your first Bowie experience?
Well, as usual, I'm going to be awkward. It's two-tiered. It was The Laughing Gnome, which I heard when I was a kid, and I didn't realise that was David Bowie. So that was my first introduction to him. Latterly, it was a live version of Heroes, which I heard on the radio, although don't ask me what channel, when I was also young. And then it was Labyrinth, when I sort of put two and two together when I was still a kid.
Wow. See, that's weird because the reason why I bought Changes in the first place was because of Space Oddity, because I think even by that time, 13 or 14, I'd seen 2001, and I always associated the song with the film, and so I knew the song really well. But like you, that was oh, that's David Bowie, is it? So you weren't quite,
Yeah.
You don't always necessarily put two and two together and come up with a sort of full picture, do you, until afterwards? Anyway, because you didn't take up much of your 60 seconds, I've decided to talk the rest of it out for you. I mean, all this, I've got 2 tiers this, and you've actually taken up 20 seconds. So I've got to wait for the sand to run out before I can ask Simon. Otherwise, he's only going to get the remaining 30.
I'll add that I hate Tim Machine with the Fiery Vengeance.
I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't come up again during the course of this conversation. Simon, your first experience.
From memory, as to how accurate it is, I'm not sure, but I do have memories of watching the Space Oddity video. And David Bowie is always that really strange man who had different coloured eyes. And it was him and Alvin Stardust used to scare the life out of me, which kind of kept him at arm's length. But I did really enjoy Space Oddity and The Laughing Gnome on Junior Choice on BBC Radio.
I don't know
and
if
then-
I've ever heard Laughing Gnome.
Have you not?
Oh,
I
you've
don't
got
know.
to.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't. Yeah,
Savor-
people say, "Oh, isn't it
savor
terrible?" And I still think it's actually all right. But then years later, I suppose it was when Let's Dance seemed to be number one for God knows how long. But what I would say is that unlike Bryan Adams, I didn't get sick of it. But it was a few years later, a friend was running a record shop and he loaned me a cassette of Low because he knew that I liked electronic music. And he said, "Have you ever heard Low?" And I said, "No." "Are you into Bowie?" I said, "Not really." And he said, "Right, have a listen to this." And then afterwards, I really was. I realised that there's something really special going on. So from then on, I was kind of curious So I'm quite a late starter with him, but I am still very curious. And like Harry, I've got a Pet Shop Boys connection in as much as the thing I always loved about them was their integrity. And I kind of think that they kind of got it in a big style from David Bowie. But that doesn't explain Dancing in the Street. But anyway, yeah.
Can I just raise that
Is Dancing on the Street on anyone's list?
there's a very good scene in Family Guy where they play the whole of the video for Dancing in the Street, and then at the end of it, Peter Griffin says, "That happened, and we let it happen."
Is it Bowie that spoils it, or is it Jagger?
They're both extraordinary.
Yes.
I mean, Jagger is 11 out of 10 ridiculous. Bowie is merely
It's like yin yang,
10.5.
but without any yin at all. It's all yang.
What is so terrible about it? All I basically remember is it's a bit like, I don't know, aesthetically a bit like Blade Runner, but they're dancing.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? If I had a digital gauntlet, I would throw it down at your feet for saying such a thing. There's no camp in Blade Runner.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of rainy, isn't it? Isn't Dancing in the Street a bit kind of rainy and dark?
Is rain the common denominator for a story about what it is to be human?
Well, I did say aesthetically, not
yes.
thematically.
Okay, we'll ignore everything else about Blade Runner and break
I mean,
down to other factors.
just the fact that you've got Bowie and Jagger together on screen means you're asking the question, what does it mean to be human, right?
For Howard's hair, that kind of big, that hair, that might be a common denominator. You know, Bowie's hair and that.
It's their love song to each other. But it's the love that dare not speak its name out loud. So they do a camp dancey thing together, and that's the closest they can get.
Fair enough. I can't really imagine Mick Jagger will actually do that love out loud, let alone say it out loud, but I could be wrong. I've not seen it since about 1985, I think. When did it come out?
About 1985.
Yeah.
85, because it was for Live Aid, wasn't it? To
Mm.
tie in.
Was
I do
it?
have the 12-inch vinyl of it, and I'm not proud of having that fact being the truth.
You paid for more of it.
Well, I did pay like £1 in a charity shop, so I'm not too.
Oh, fair play.
But at the same time, I picked it up with my own hands, which will
Yeah.
never be clean again.
You
And he
Lady
says-
says nothing.
He paid £1 for it in a charity shop, but it was 60p in Woolworths when it was released, so they saw him coming.
Curse your inflation. You've sullied my spirit again.
Right, what is going to happen now is we've all got a list of our top 5 Bowie songs, and I'm just going to go around. I'll try and stick to the same alphabetical order just to keep myself sane as I'm doing this. I'll just ask our 5th place, then our 4th place, and we've each got 60 seconds to say what that song means to us. But if we take less, we take less, and if we take more, we take more. Because, like I say, I'm not policing this. But I am going to keep the timer out just to make sure that nobody goes on for like 7 minutes or anything ridiculous like that. If 2 people have got the same song on their list, I will not say what it is. I will say we'll get to that in a minute when we get to it on the person who's got it higher on their list, because that's the way we do it. We always do it when it gets to the higher place on the list. There's not many songs, only 4 songs that have been on more than one of our lists. And those 4, I guess, will be our David Bowie top 4 at the end of the podcast. So as long as I remember, I'll reveal what our top 4 is. And there's a very definite winner. There's one song that's out miles ahead of anything else, and that is collectively our favourite Bowie song. But I'm not going to say what it is until we get there. I'm sure you're all desperately trying to work out now which one it could possibly have been. But you all voted in secret, so none of you know, except John, of course. He's guessed it, and he thinks it's...
I've got, well, because I edited the book, I suspect it's the right. I can get the era, certainly.
Let me put it this way. It's not Wild as the Wind, and it's not Dancing in the
Oh.
Street.
It's young Americans.
Or the
isn't
laughing
it?
note.
It's young Americans.
Right, let's get into this. Harry, your 5th place one is 1st place on somebody else's list, astonishingly. So we'll come back to you in a minute. Next in the alphabet is Iain. Your 5th place song is not on anybody else's list, mainly because none of the other 5 of us have ever heard of it. So you tell us what your 5th place song is and tell us why you love it.
Okay, well, it's The Next Day from the Bowie album The Next Day, which was his big comeback after sort of 10 years off. And it was preceded by that really haunting single, the name of which temporarily escapes me.
Where
But
are
the
we now?
next day, thank you. The Next Day kind of has this rage and this driving energy about it, and it was just really refreshing to hear a new Bowie song that was really full on. So I loved it for that reason.
Okay, that's good. We didn't get far into the 60 seconds, but that'll do. Um, who's next on the alphabet? John. Oh, we've already spoken about your fifth place choice, but
We
you,
have.
well, we've mentioned it in passing, but go on, talk about your fifth place
Indeed,
choice.
me and Simon on the podcast, and we weren't the first one who brought the Pet Shop Boys. It's Hello Space Boy Pie.
Which is
I
not on
love the
Simon's list. I'm
Oscar's a professional. I went with my heart. He's obviously gone with his head as well. I'm a professional on that score. Um, yeah, it's the original is just this massive kind of industrial slab. Bowie's been listening to 90 Stars. I really kind of loved that about him in the 90s. He was still engaged with stuff, even if something like his drum and bass didn't quite work for me. But he met Neil Tennant at a gig, and he said, "Oh," and they came up with this remix. And it's brilliant. It just makes an absolute pop banger out of this real long slab industrial rock. And it's referencing history. It's gone right through. It's an accidental part of the trilogy that wasn't planned. And yeah, it's both these artists. I think they say not only they've got integrity, it's they're magpies. They're gateways to everything else. So this kind of symbolizes all that for me.
right. My fifth place choice is third on Simon's list, so I'm not going to say what that is yet. We'll get to it in a minute. Ryan, your fifth place choice isn't on anybody else's list, though. So tell us what your fifth place choice is and tell us why you love it.
So my fifth choice is Fame from the album Young Americans, an album I have very little respect for. But what I do love about this song is the fact that it's it's this bizarre, like almost unnoticed conglomeration between John Lennon, Carlos Alomar, and David Bowie, and it's all of them whinging about all the money and fame that their life has brought them, and I find it hilarious. What I really like is the fact that Bowie hated the word fame after this so much he had to twist the voice using looping and everything because he just hated the word by that stage. And this is the weird like angle that Bowie comes in at. He's this incredibly famous person. He loves art. He loves sending out messages and everything, but he complains about all the benefits from it, and I think it's hilarious. Um, and it's his first American number one again, so he got more attention from a song whinging about the fact he gets attention than more or less any other song he's done, and that is irony.
Nice. Simon,
Hmm.
your fifth place choice.
My fifth place choice is kind of more representative than kind of a song in its own right, but I do think it's a brilliant record, and it's Valentine's Day. Um, and I just picked this because I like those little windows you get with Bowie that as strange as he gets, he still knows how to make a perfect pop song. And he just shows all the indie bands, all your Blurs and your all of those other great bands that he's still the best at all that stuff. And it's just a really sweet song, a bit like Absolute Beginners or something like that. And and then he makes movies like Labyrinth in the middle of having this really arty, full-on, obscure kind of career where nobody really quite knows what he's doing, and he sees beauty in the obvious and the formulaic as much as he does the completely mad and bonkers stuff. So yes, I really love Valentine's Day, particularly as it's a later album.
Fair enough. Right, we get to our fourth place choices. So, Harry, coming back around to you again, what's your fourth place choice and why do you love it?
My fourth place is Slow Burn, which was the first time I experienced David Bowie bringing out a new album, which I hadn't heard. Because by 2002, I had all David Bowie's albums and had listened to them all and pored over all of them. So it was very, very exciting to have new Bowie, and I loved the sort of sophisticated sound of it. I loved that he did it on top of the pops, and he looked great. He looked impossibly cool, and the whole Heathen album is so stylishly done and so beautifully made. And it's I love the track. I love it's got such texture to it. and I love his voice in it, and it's wonderful. And I'll always remember that thrill of having a brand new David Bowie album for the first time
What
for
was the
me.
album for somebody who,
Heathen.
Ethan.
right,
Mm.
fair enough. Uh, Big thumbs up from Ian as you said that. Of course, Ian loves everything.
Mhm.
But he's not going to thumbs up on mine because they're all really obvious choices because they're all obviously off the compilation albums. Right, we'll get back to me later though. Next up, Ian, it is you. What's your fourth choice?
My fourth choice is Little Wonder, the first song from Earthling, which came out, I want to say January 95. And it was,
Seven.
I was at uni, I was properly into music at this point and buying literally everything that I heard on the radio. And this was the first time Bowie had done something while I'd been a sort of active music fan that was kind of relevant and now, and it was incredibly obviously drum and bassy, Nine Inch Nailsy, as we've said. And it just had, again, a kind of ferocity about it that really distinguished it from a lot of his other work. And it's still, I don't want to say head and shoulders the best thing on Earthling, but it's the best thing on Earthling.
Fair enough. John, your fourth place choice is on somebody else's list.
I would be
JR,
surprised if it wasn't.
JR, your fourth place choice is on somebody else's list. So I'm coming around to not Ryan, because your fourth place choice is on somebody else's list. Straight back round to Simon. I'm most interested to see how you're going to pronounce this.
Well, I don't know myself, and I've just been looking that up, and I can't work it out without playing the audio sample.
I would just say it in the English way and have done with it.
Well, Warszawa. Is that how you say it?
I would
Or
have just gone
Shava
with
or something like that. Or
Well, there you go. I
it's
knew there'd be
Warsaw,
some clever
basically.
way of doing it.
Yeah.
I picked this because it was on the Low album. The Low album is still my favorite David Bowie album. And for a record that was made in that year, it just sounds absolutely timeless and futuristic and layered and structured in a kind of using synths in a symphonic way. And what I really love about that album is it's almost like there's two sides to it. You've got your vocal tracks, and then the second half of the album is all, just sound and emotion, with a few voices just used as texture. Yeah, so it's just an amazing piece of music.
Fair enough. Right, we come around then to our third place choices. So again, this is going to be fun with the pronunciation. Harry, what's your third place choice?
I'm going to attempt to say Newcoln,
I
which
think it must
is
be New Kern, isn't it?
Newcoln. I don't know, but it's
Well,
a
it's Cologne,
district.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a district in Germany, and it's from the Heroes album. When I was 17, I was just getting into these Berlin albums, and I hadn't heard anything like this, and I had it in a very cold winter, and I just remember lying back and listening to it and just thinking, I I can just feel everything that he's trying to get across in this, and sort of inaccurate sort of imagined history of Berlin in my head, of it sort of being very cold and wet and bleak, and it's so sort of sad, and then it's got this sort of Eastern melody in it as well. And I remember thinking all sorts of probably very inaccurate historical things about why that was on there. But it was so exciting to hear something like that that I'd never heard the like of it before. And it was a musical awakening for me, I thought.
Fair enough.
Mm.
Right, Ian, I was going to ask you your third place choice, but actually, have you got a proposition for me?
Well, JR, as you know, I've always been a fan, and I'd like to know, would you be my wife?
Hey! Ian's third place choice is Be My Wife.
So with Low, obviously, most of it is kind of impossibly fragile, icy, elegant, sophisticated, and cosmopolitan. So my favorite song is the out and out rock stomper, which is kind of ridiculous and a bit of a knees up and a hugely fun track. The video is amazing because his teeth by that point are basically the color of tea. And it's just so not frivolous. Frivolous is the wrong word, but it's just such a standard rock hit in a period where he's making, art. So it's kind of him, I guess, slumming it in a way, but it's just so much fun. I love it.
Excellent. Right, we come around to John. Your third place choice isn't on anybody else's list, so would you like to say what it is?
Right, that certainly would. Well, it's station to station. Low is my favorite Bowie album, but I didn't think I could put it on because I just kind of regard it as if one piece or two pieces put together. So this is kind of Bowie bridging the gap between his American phase, which he had, and then when he came to Berlin. So you've got the kind of the train noises, a journey across, and it's the brilliant trick here, which I think was the first trick thing I'd come across because I knew him from pop, and then this was one of the first albums I picked up cheaply, and then you open with this. It's three songs which he couldn't finish, put together, and just it. I love to know how Startling this sounded back in '76 because it is just so different from that kind of rock tradition that he came up in. So yeah, it's the European canon is here.
Right, JR, what's your third place choice? Well, JR, my third place choice is not on anybody else's list, and it's Space Oddity, and I just want to know what is wrong with you guys. Unbelievable. So Space Oddity is like David Bowie's first big hit, right? In fact, it's the thing that takes him from a nobody into like one of the great rock stars of the 1970s, isn't it? This was a massive, massive hit, and you couldn't move but for hearing this. And
Novelty
said,
hit though.
sort of. I don't think it is. I think it's like got this really intelligent story that it's telling, and it's telling a really intelligent story with a lot of sort of melancholy and empathy about what does it mean to go to outer space. I mean, and this is the thing. People who've been to like the moon and that will say, if you look down at the Earth from outer space, all of a sudden there's a very, I don't know why Ian thinks I'm on a
It's just because
comedy.
you just went unexpectedly Carl Pilkington.
Did I?
Yeah, like space and that. Yeah.
I don't know,
The
but
moon and that.
I don't know, but it's about perspective, isn't it? The whole point of Space Oddity is about perspective. It's not a novelty song. It's a song about the perspective of man, because everything that we do is on such a finite micro scale. And then when you go into the sort of macro of space, you get this. But the thing that I think is really striking about this is, generally speaking, early in artists' careers, they're into the noise and the energy and stuff like that. Space Oddity sounds like the kind of record that you make once you get into your 40s and you've done all the energetic, noisy stuff. Bowie goes from this big acoustic ballad as his first hit to doing the sort of noisy, energetic stuff like in his 60s and that, doesn't he? So I just think Space Oddity's an astonishing sort of calling card of a record, frankly. I think Space Oddity's got a shout for being one of the greatest singles ever made, frankly. Whether you think it's a novelty hit or not. In
I didn't say it's a bad thing.
in third place on Who's Next? It's Ryan, isn't it? Oh, Ryan, yours isn't on anybody else's list either. So what's your third place choice?
This is my fourth. I haven't done my fourth yet.
No, because your fourth place is on somebody else's list. So we'll
Oh,
get to it
okay,
when we
right.
get there.
Sorry. Edit that out. Absolute Beginners.
No. That's your fourth place choice.
My
We're
third
doing your
place
third
one.
place choice.
Right. Heroes.
Right.
Okay, so this is the Berlin Bowie. And again, it's Bowie running away from something, running away from LA and drugs and everything that fame brought him. So there's a theme, there's an ongoing story of mine. It's not interesting, but there is thematic resonance. And he's working again. It's a collaboration with King Crimson's Robert Fripp as well. He's mucking around with the vocals again. He's layering it. And this is a song about hope in the face of desperation. And this has been used in so many pop culture ref things. It's an anthem. I mean, it's been in everything from the TV show Heroes to God knows what else. And he stopped doing this in 2006 live when he won the Mercury Prize. But they did use it to close out the London Olympics in 2012 as well. But yeah, what I like about this song is that it's triumphant but also tragic. It's got that classic line of just for one day. So there's that sting in the tail of is this an illusion of being a hero? Um, and yeah, it's avant-garde. It's Brian Eno. It's a very raw song, um, and he's just past the Thin White Duke stage, which is the bit that I really like about his career. That's where I think he stops becoming so. He's a bit less pretentious for a while, which I really like. Don't get me wrong, I love Bowie, but he's pretentious as hell. And this is the bit where he's just desperate enough to be more earnest than I think in possibly another point in his career. I'm sure that'll put the cat amongst the pigeons, but that's my take on it anyway. So yeah, Love and Despair in one easy, digestible musical package.
Right. Simon,
Mm.
your third place choice was fifth on my list. So I'm just going to throw in, I don't know, a few seconds worth, and then I'll get you to say what it is and why you love it. But the thing that I find really interesting about this record is that it's a sequel to other things he's done, and yet it stands up in his own right, and it still manages to sort of find the poignancy in the thing he's talking about. So he does a sort of theme of singles, a bunch of singles along this theme. And in every case, he manages to find a new angle on the theme that he brings a poignancy to. And I think it's a great pop song. It's one of those sort of spiky, odd songs that's very distinctive. When it comes on the radio, it's unmistakable for anything else. And although it's sort of part of his 80s period, so it's quite not quite as spiky maybe as some of the 70s stuff. I just think it's astonishing, frankly. Simon, what is it and why do you love it?
It is Ashes to Ashes. Um, it's interesting going back to Hello Space Boy with the whole Major Tom connection. I mean, obviously the Major Tom in Hello Space Boy that was all Neil Tennant anyway, wasn't it? That was only for the remix. It wasn't mentioned.
Yes.
Major
There's
Tom didn't
nothing
come into
in,
the original
yeah,
version,
nothing on the
and
album.
that's kind of why I didn't vote for Hello Space Boy because I kind of personally, and it's not just because I'm a PSB fan. It's that Pet Shop Boys made it into an amazing track, whereas before it was an interesting track. So that's why it didn't make the top five for me. But anyway, Ashes to Ashes is
And
just
that's why nobody's got Drummer Boy in their top fives
this
either.
is it. Yeah, it's just perfect. But equally, you've never heard anything quite like it before. It's just really, really odd. And I love the TV series, and why not
Yeah.
make that connection?
Well, absolutely. And who knew, mate? Well, the things it's got to say about Major Tom, yes. But let's move on. We're getting into second place territory now. So we come back around to Harry, your second place choice.
So we're talking about pretentiousness. My second choice is Andy Warhol because Andy Warhol is a ridiculous song. It's absolutely charming, and it's this on that album. There are two songs about people that he admires. There's one about Bob Dylan as well, and it's just ridiculous. It's Andy walking, Andy tired, Andy takes a little snooze. It's lovely, but I also really like the sound of it. Again, I love his voice in it. And when I heard it at sort of 17, 16 or something, I thought it was ridiculous, and it made me look up who Andy Warhol was because I didn't really know. And we talk about artists being gateways into other artists. I think John was saying that earlier, and it was one of those things. It was an educational song for me, but I also find it really, really charming and kind of funny.
Fair enough. Right. On Ian's list, your second place choice is higher up on other people's. So we'll come back to that later. John, your second place choice was Ryan's fourth place choice. So Ryan,
I've
you're
been spoiled on that.
yeah.
How?
Ryan,
Oh, spoiler alert!
this
This
is
is
how
like Who
we.
Shot JL.
So Ryan, just give us a little bit on your fourth place choice, and then John can talk about it.
Yeah, so it's absolute beginners. The reason for this is one, I just really like the tune, full stop. But also the fact that I saw the opening 20 minutes of the movie and I was really hooked and I didn't get to see the end of it for ages. So my mind filled in the gaps and the film in my head was much better than the film we got. But the song, just I really, really absolutely loved. I like the whole 50s Soho youth culture thing. So this to me is actually the soundtrack to a film that doesn't exist. And that's why
Yeah,
I really, really love it.
that seems fair enough. John, absolute beginners.
it's just Bowie at his absolute most uncomplicatedly romantic. You know, he got to, was it number 2? I think, Kept Off by Chain Reaction. It is, you know, at the height of this kind of crassly commercial phase of the, and what's pretty much seen as his, you know, artistic nadir between Tonight and Tin Machine. He can still produce this absolute epic, gorgeous love song. And I think he's begun training his voice by this point. So it's just so powerful, so overwhelming. And, you know, I don't, and rarely do I think that love, you know, how overwhelming it can be, has been communicated so well on record as this.
Fair enough.
I just want to have one thing, because I put this in my notes, and this is the cleverest thing I'll probably ever say.
Time's up for you, Harry. Ryan.
Harry, you heard that, Harry. Your time's up, pal. This song is so good.
No, that's
it makes
a threat.
Wait, let me get the punchline out, then you can complain for wasting your time.
I know, but if I waste your time, then it makes the punchline.
The song, right? The song is so good, it makes you believe in love right up until you actually watch the film. That would have been funny 25 seconds ago before you jumped up and down all over
I
it.
think the rug was pulled out from that, wasn't it?
It really, really was.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. Where are we? We're at my second place choice, aren't we? Which is Sound and Vision. The first time I heard this was on how is this not on anybody else's lists either, frankly, but it's
so
not.
many good singles.
And anyone spotting the pattern here of JR's choices?
Maybe. They're all the obvious ones, aren't they?
I could have done a list of 25 songs, not 5.
But I think the reason why they're all the obvious ones on my list is because they all work really well, frankly. But Sound and Vision, so the first time I heard it was on that double CD of the hits. And so I knew a lot of the stuff on there, but a lot of it was like brand new to me. And this, I think, is the last track on the first disc or near the end of the first disc. And when this came on, I was just like, what on earth is this? Because I think the thing that you kind of anticipate with a singer-songwriter is that you're going to get some kind of crafted song in which there's a lot of singing and a lot of lyrics. This has got this great big instrumental intro, the likes of which you've never really heard. This was a song, I don't know, does anybody know what year this song was done in? It's like 73 or something, isn't it? It's quite early, I think.
So
Yeah,
it was in
it's another one.
77?
77, yeah. But it sounds like it's done in the mid-80s, doesn't it, really? But I guess apart from the guitar on it. So it's got this weird thing where it sounds like a cross between like New Wave, which is, I guess, 77 is just before New Wave, but also the sort of like dance tracks. Like it's not a million miles away from Let's Dance, frankly, in the kind of the sort of tone of it. And then it just goes into this weird sort of vocal that sounds like something out of a science fiction film. It's like he's kind of going back and accessing the sort of thinking that went into Space Oddity, but he's doing it in a way that anticipates stuff that he would do on like the Let's Dance album and that. I just think it's astonishing. But that's my second place choice. So we move on to Ryan. Your second place choice is higher on other people's lists. So we'll come back and talk about that in a minute. Have you got that now, Ryan?
Yeah, I've understood the maths. Yeah, I've got it now. So,
right.
So this is 1971's Life on Mars question.
No. Ryan, we'll
That's my
come
number
back
2.
and talk about that in a minute when we get to it on somebody else's list.
Then what did you tag me in for then?
I didn't. I said we're passing over you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That passed over me.
But we get to Simon, your second place choice.
Second place choice is Modern Love, the Let's Dance album. I think if it wasn't for Let's Dance, everyone will remember Modern Love as the all-time great 80s Bowie song, as far as I'm concerned. There's been some amazing cover versions of it, which is always
You don't
proven.
think China Girl?
No, I don't. I like China Girl, but not.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's just a really, really amazing pop song, and has an incredible energy. Starting off that album, those massive drums, all the Nile Rodgers production on it. I just think it's a really great record.
Just to butt in just for a second, when that came up on that double CD of all his singles, I was like, oh, I had no idea this was Bowie. Of course, I knew the song really well. I had no idea it was him. Which
Probably
I think,
production, isn't it? Because Nile Rodgers is all over that mid-80s.
yeah, which kind of just changes it so that you just think it's by somebody. You just think it's this amazing song by somebody else, and then when you realize it's by Bowie, you just go, "Oh yeah, it's just like an average Bowie song, right?" Do you know what I mean? It's like in his canon, it doesn't necessarily stick out in the way that, which I'm, which I'm not saying to disparage it as your second place choice, Simon.
No,
But
no.
what I'm saying is, his oeuvre has got so many amazing things in it. Frankly,
It's yeah, it doesn't ooze Bowie, does it? But it does just show that he was a craftsman. You know, we're not just talking somebody who just throws songs together. That was it's just it's refined to a high degree.
right? We go around the first place choices, and so
Ryan,
where
yours
am I?
is higher up on somebody else's list.
I don't think I'm actually here anymore. I think I've gone off the list now.
We'll get to you, Ryan. You
You've got
clearly
to me
haven't.
already.
You clearly haven't heard one of these before. We've been using this format for years. Okay, so Harry, starting with you, your first place choice is not higher up on anybody else's list. So tell us what your first place choice is and why.
It was a last minute choice. Luxury Bowie, Aladdin Sane. It's a smooth, exciting, sort of driving, sort of wonderful record on a wonderful album. It feels expensive. It feels like a hot, sort of hot summer night. And then there's a piano part in the middle of it, which is just absolutely insane. And I don't think the piano survived. You know, it couldn't have done. They really put it through the ringer. And the way his vocals are recorded with the falsetto, it's just absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I think of it as luxury Bowie for me. It feels like a sort of, it's absolutely gorgeous and so exciting. It's such an exciting record.
Fair enough. I've just dispensed with the timer now. We're all on our first choices, aren't we? I don't think we should be hindered by time anymore. Not that
In
we
which
really
case,
were in the first place.
It's falling to the floor, taking a cigarette.
Ian, would you like to tell us what your
I'm
first
not saying the
place?
rest.
Ian, your first place choice.
Um, I've forgotten it. I've blanked. I've totally forgotten.
Do you want me to tell you what your
Oh yeah,
first?
no, I've got it. So, going back to 2002's Heathen, which is one of the best records he ever made. There's a fairly obscure track called "Everyone Says Hi," which
Oh,
is rare in Bowie and me because I have a genuine emotional response to it. A lot of his stuff is like looking at a glacier or looking at a star field and just being like wowed by the majesty. But this is an actual emotional song, and I heard it. I heard it when I moved to the Middle East, and I had a sort of brilliant confluence of being incredibly drunk, incredibly homesick. I was 4,000 miles away from everyone I knew. And I heard this song about it's kind of like your dad dropping you off at university. It's like, look after yourself, do this, don't do that. Don't forget we love you. Don't forget where home is. And it's just so, it's such an arm around your shoulder from the last person you expect that kind of thing from. And it always makes me a little bit wibbly as we've discovered right here and now.
yeah, I actually can't even think about that song without welling up.
Right.
Wow. Harry, while you're there,
Yeah.
your fifth place choice is John's first place choice. So I'll get John to
Aha.
talk about it in a minute, but before he does, do you want to give us a few words on that?
Well, Bowie's final album starts with a track called Black Star, which is one of the most peculiar and unusual things that I've ever heard. And it also goes with a wonderful, I'm going to call it a short film rather than a music video. And I think the two are kind of, that you can't really separate the two. It's very much, they go together. And it's exceptional. It's totally and totally bizarre. There are so many parts to it, and it gets weirder and weirder. And it starts off pretty weird, and it gets weirder and weirder. Bowie looks incredibly cool in it. You know, the way they're sort of styling, you know, what was left of his hair at the time. Um, it's just nothing else I've ever heard anywhere else sounds anything like it. And I think my favorite part of it is the, take your passport and shoes bit where he's sort of grooving around, and it's 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 so odd, and the dancing, and it's and yeah, it's like music from another world, and it's such a shame that we didn't get more because I think there were at least another couple of albums of that sort of thing to come. But the album isn't all weird. The album is also really poignant and really musical. But Black Star is just it's from another world, absolutely from another world, and I love it. I could watch it over and over, and I have. I was
John.
just into a new relationship at the time, um, who I've now been with Mike for 10 years now, and yeah, I made him watch that, and I said, "Oh, I really like David Bowie. Do you want to see this?" And he was a bit frightened, I think.
It's a good introduction to you, though, isn't it?
It is a good introduction to me. Yes, it's like if you can enjoy this, then spend time with me.
And Genesis of the Daleks will be no problem. But Kinder,
Yeah.
John, Black Star.
It's his last trick, isn't it? I'm. It's almost too much made of Bowie as a serious artist because he was so goofy. He was happy to joke around. He was happy to play with every genre. He didn't take things too seriously. But this, I mean, particularly, it came out. What the album came out. This was November. I think November before he died. November
I thought it
2015 was
was
it? This came out,
January
Yeah, it was.
2016. It
and then
was,
the album came out a
I think
month,
that
Wasn't
about a
long
month
after his
later.
birthday, was it?
Yeah, it was. I think the album came out on the Friday, and
I
Monday
think,
morning the news broke that he
yeah,
died.
Yeah.
that's right.
And this, you couldn't necessarily understand it at the time because obviously no one knew he was ill, no one knew he was anything like that. And then you see it afterwards, and it's that whole Black Star album. It's looking back, but it's not looking back nostalgically. It's he's looking forward. He's got is it Donny I think Caslin? I can never do the name. He's got that sax. He's got jazz musicians in to go beyond that kind of conventional rock thing that he'd done on the next day. And he is looking back, and he's not looking back with fondness, with nostalgia, with shame or anything. It's almost with that clear eye. And you look at all the references, it's a passing of the torch as well, which is very much what Bowie was kind of into. He was always wanted to big up new artists. It was with the Pixies, and now it was Goldie with he's doing it through the 80s as well, for goodness sake. He was always wanted to know what was going on. And it's almost a final statement, I think. It's very much modelled on Station to Station, but again, it's three songs glued together. And I'm not quite there on Harry with the Take Your Passport issues. My favourite bit is the bit where it goes into something happened the day he died. Because I don't know how to, it's something like the sound of the sun coming up at that point.
Mm.
And it's just supposed to rise. It's a don't be sad I'm going or gone. Be happy that I was here and take what you can and move forward. And it's kind of a man at the end of his days looking forward. And I absolutely adore that kind of impulse in Bowie. He's very, very generous creatively like that. And it's very generous if you're a fan of his as well.
Okay, my first choice takes us back to very early in Bowie's career as well. And and again, this is a song that sounds mature beyond its years, in the verses at least. Well, no, in the choruses too, actually, come to think of it. And again, this is so and you're right. Whoever it was who mentioned, I think it was Harry who said actually listening to Bowie is not really an emotional experience mostly. No, it was Iain, wasn't it?
Mm.
It's more of a sort of monolithic, here's a great piece of art experience, but it doesn't necessarily target your sort of emotional being. But I think this song does. And it's the title track from Changes, right? So it's the single that they named the first compilation or the early compilation album after. But what I think is really astonishing about this is it does that thing. A lot of people, when they do a verse, they'll sort of repeat a melodic phrase and change the words, but changes develops through the verse. And then when it arrives at the chorus, and it sounds like an obvious thing to say because it's kind of sort of got a call and response thing going in the chorus. But actually, it's not a call and response thing. It's two different songs happening at the same time as each other. And I just think it is, just from a technical songwriting point of view, I just think Changes is the most astonishing accomplishment. And the fact that you can do something that is as accomplished as that artistically and yet still tugs at your heartstrings and still makes you feel something, I think is just an astonishing achievement. And so it was weird. When I looked at the list, I was thinking, oh, what's my favourite Bowie song? Sound and Vision and Space Oddity. And the one that we've not talked about yet, but that Ryan's given away, were the obvious ones that jump out and leap out at you and say, this is classic Bowie. But actually, when it came to it, the Bowie song that always pops into my head, if a Bowie song ever pops into my head when I'm just walking down the street or whatever, it's always Changes. And so I couldn't not go with Changes, frankly, in the end. So Changes it is. Ryan, your number one choice. We'll talk about your number two choice in a minute, but what's your number one choice, Ryan?
My number one. Right, I'm scared now to say it in case I've got somehow misunderstood your voodoo maths, and it's Moon Age Daydream from 1972.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was thought I just was going to step on a landmine again then. Yes. So this is from the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. So it's his Ziggy Stardust persona, the alien rock star. So as a science fiction nerd, that really appealed to me. This is him, full on cosmic hippie. He was Ziggy Stardust by this point, and this is his space glam manifesto, if you like. Um, and yeah, it's poetic absurdity, it's sci-fi theatrics. Mick Ronson again channeling this sort of intergalactic thunder. It's got androgyny in it as well, which is something that Bowie sort of dabbled in a lot. Also, the only lyric I can think of where a musician has accused himself of being an alligator, which I was very much in favour of. But what I also really like about this song is that it's another one of Bowie's songs that failed massively originally, and someone came along and gave it a kick up the backside and made it good. Because this was originally, what was the pseudonym? Arnold Corns. That was it.
Right.
Arnold Corns, a very short-lived Bowie project that massively died on its backside. And yeah, this is a song that's when you throw in like a B movie alien, a Shakespearean actor, and a sort of bisexual androgynous glam rock icon into a blender, basically. And it's great. And for some reason, I have this weird sensation. I know you're saying about not being an emotional thing, but Moon Age Daydream is kind of like when I listen to it, it's like a memory I want to have that I've never experienced anything like this, and I really want to have something akin to this experience in my real life. Because it was, for me, this was a toss up between putting this in and Memories of a Free Festival, because they give me a similar kind of vibe. But Moon Age Daydream is just, yeah, this is the top for me. I absolutely adore this song.
And so I'm going to run down our list now. Spoilers for the end of this list. These are the songs that turned up on more lists than one. So these are the songs that collectively, I guess, we liked more. Ashes to Ashes was on two lists. That was third on Simon's list and fifth on mine. Absolute Beginners was on two lists. That was fourth on Ryan's and second on John's. Black Star was on two lists. That was fifth on Harry's, but first on John's. And the song that clearly has won
Cool.
is the song that is on everybody's lists. It's fourth on John's, fourth on mine. It's second on Ryan's. It's second on Ian's. It's first on Steve's, who didn't turn up, and it's first on Simon's. But before I ask any of us what life on Mars means to us, I just want to ask Harry, how come yours is the only list that it's not on?
Because I found it very difficult to narrow down five Bowie songs. And had I been given, I actually had a list of six, which included a song that no one's talked about, which was Starman. But I had to take it off because it was played at a close friend's funeral last year, and so I've had to take it off. But yeah, Life on Mars is beautiful. I love it, and it's certainly, I wouldn't want to say I've excluded it from my list. It just Unfortunately, I did the list in a very quick way of dashing it down and saying, right, I'm not going to think any more about it. I'm just going to send it because otherwise it would have taken me weeks and a lot of very pleasurable listening. But yeah.
It's fourth on mine. Just about everything I said about changes, and
Hmm.
everything I said about Sound of Vision, and everything I said about Space Oddity. Basically, they're all together in this song. John, it was fourth on yours as well.
Yeah, it's. I just think it's extraordinary. You say about Bowie being this work of art. I just get that emotion from that first chord. From Wakeman's piano. It's just gorgeous. It it's I think really resonant of the if you're bookish or into art, you're not out there necessarily playing football or anything. You indoors watching or reading stuff, and that first verse just totally gets me every single time. I just it's like Bowie was singing with empathy. It's also having that persona, and the emotion of it. I think it's like Space Oddity. There's a moment in that which I think is a which is where where he goes to tell my wife I love her very much. She knows, and it's just almost when he does go emotional like that, the restraint on the other records makes it overwhelming, and it's good. And yeah, it's just that total emotion of it. And God knows, what he's going on about in the second verse, but it's glorious nonsense. It's
He's
prefigures
talking
his
about the
later
merry
career.
glass tortured brow, obviously.
Yes, and Mickey Mouse growing up a cow.
Wow.
Oh, it means everything without meaning anything, and that's what a lot of Bowie's lyrics do. So yeah, it's just the emotion of this record that I couldn't intellectualize it beyond that. I would say it just hits me somewhere deep.
Fair. Ryan, this was second on your list.
Yeah. So for me, this is just before Ziggy. This is Hunky Dory again, early 70s. For me, the bit that gets me about this, it's funny you were talking about the beginning of the song. For me, it's the end. It's that haunting, the way it fades out, and you've got that phone that won't ever be answered. And this is about escapism and absurdity of life and frustration that life is very confusing, especially when you're young. And I think that resonates. I don't think you have to be young to appreciate that. I don't. You guys probably all knew this, but this is actually meant to be a parody of Frank Sinatra's "My Way" because Bowie was given a chance to write lyrics to that song, and and his lyrics got rejected, so he wrote this instead. Which
Nice.
I just think that's lovely. But yeah, Rick Wakeman's piano in this is amazing. Um, and yeah, it's trying to escape life through movies and fantasy, which I think I feel very strongly that we can all empathise with this. Um, and I think the as part of the ongoing narrative, I think the girl with the mousy hair in this leaves the cinema and walks straight into the next Bowie song, which is probably Ashes to Ashes, and she just continues being confused. Really, I think there's definitely a through point here. But yeah, art pop, cabaret, alien singing, I love it.
Ian, also it's second on your list.
So yeah, most of my responses to Bowie songs are personal or they're more, I guess, eccentric. But when he's doing music, which is a work of art, you can't ignore it and you have to acknowledge it. And this, for me, is not only his most wonderful song in every sense of the word, it's possibly one of the greatest works of art humanity has ever produced. I'm done.
And Simon, Paradigm Stranger in Space. You had this first on your list, which is clearly where it belongs, and the rest of us are all wrong.
Hooray! Um, I just think, oh, yeah, going back to what Ian was just saying, well, the word classic is used quite a lot in records, but when you hear people saying that, well, in 100 years in the future, a lot of the pop records will be thought of as classical, and this is up there because it's at kind of Beethoven level. Just 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 quite. I just think it's glorious, and it's one of the reasons I really love pop music, and I love polished pop music and like dirty pop music. I don't like pop music when it's overtly dumb for the sake of being dumb. I just think that it can be so intelligent and beautiful, and this song just kind of occupies a kind of a sonic space. I mean, again, going back to the TV series, Life on Mars, that the moment I hear that record, I think about the moment he's hit by the car, and you've got that kind of that weird empty feeling of between kind of life and death going on. And this is as pretentious as I get, I think, talking about songs, but I honestly believe that this song is just kind of on another level to most. I mean, it's kind of lyrically, it's kind of John Lennon. It is quite Beatlesy. It's quite a day in the life, but it's you know uh, John Lennon lyrics, but again taken up a notch. And if what Ryan says is right, then it comes from a silly place, really. That it comes from My Way, but then My Way is supposedly like a footnote at the end of someone's life, isn't it? So yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain it, but I just think it's utterly, utterly perfect.
Fair. Right, should we just to sign off, go round the sort of inner circle a bit and say maybe what David Bowie means to us, or I don't know, a final thought about David Bowie? And I guess I'll kick us off. So maybe we won't do this alphabetically. So make it known if you're ready to speak. But so I've said that Bowie wasn't like one of my favorite pop or rock stars or whatever. But I mean, in terms of iconicism in rock, a lot of the time it's the sort of visual thing or the musical thing that makes a pop star or a rock star or whatever iconic. Rarely it's the two things together. Madonna, for example, made some great records, but most of those records are fairly disposable next to her iconic look or the iconic look she had for certain periods. And then for something like the Stones, it's the opposite. The records are iconic, but the band themselves are just kind of five guys in jeans or whatever. Bowie's one of the few instances where that it's the whole experience itself that absolutely settles in your consciousness as something particular and something special. So even if I wasn't the biggest fan of his music, I can recognize, you know, what an impact he has had on the sort of pop and rock stratosphere. He's one of the absolute greatest people ever to take up a microphone, an instrument, whatever. Anybody else want to say a few words? No?
Yeah,
All right, we'll
I
go
don't
out.
mind.
Go on, Simon.
Um, yeah, I just feel he's kind of a benchmark. I just think any artist, anyone who wants to be an artist as opposed to just a pop star, who's kind of serious about it and kind of it almost wants to look at a manual of how to do it, is to look to him. Because it wasn't all great. I don't by any means, there's a lot of Bowie stuff I kind of have I've either ignored or not even looked at. But it's a constant journey. But I just think if there's a way to be within music, to be creative and be an artist, and it's just having that doing what feels right, I think is what it's about. And it's also having the bravery to make mistakes as well. Because a lot of bands do have like a consistent output, but you find out they've only done about 3 albums in the space of 15 years. But he just tried stuff, and that's why you get the absolute cream rising to the top.
John?
Yeah, it's again. What I go back to, it's the gateway thing, and it's not just the gateway musically. He brought in stuff from other art forms. He was always interested. There's a great list of his favorite books, and one of them is Viz. It's fantastic. He wasn't ashamed of anything he was doing on that. And I mean, the thing I really find fascinating, and it's come up, I think, with the fact that we've got so many different songs on these lists. It came up when I was editing that Me and the Starman book. Still available on Amazon if you want to go and see it. um, was that we all kind of have this different Bowie. There is different stuff that appeals to us, and I think I would be suspicious of anyone who couldn't find something to like in that Bowie catalog because there's such a range, such a diversity in there. And,
Yeah.
it covers pretty much the entire modern pop and rock era. He goes from I think it's the early '60s right through to 2016, and we haven't really seen many kind of innovations since then. And he covers all that so beautifully, and we all relate to it so differently. I would be suspicious of someone who said they like every bit of Bowie, because I don't think it's possible to have that kind of broader taste, or to love those kind of failed experiments. And there are failed experiments there. There is stuff that only a mother could love, almost. But just that range. And I think the secret of Bowie as well, he appealed to the people on the edges as much as he could write a good pop song. He was bringing in this kind of almost creating his own tribe, I think, from the people who didn't quite fit in, and on the edges of the music and on the mainstream of culture almost. And he gave them that kind of place to belong. And I think that's the secret. He makes you kind of feel there's someone else who feels the same way as you. I think he's quite kind of almost ADHD with the kind of magpie nature of his music at times. But I think that's what I absolutely love about him. It's just that it's almost like he's the guy you'd go to if you wanted a key to that kind of the past, that 50, 60 years of rock and pop.
On
Can I
that,
just can I build on that? Because I
well, I
think
was just going to say, on that note, does that make him the musical Doctor Who?
Yes.
Yeah, that's in my notes actually.
yeah,
That is
maybe.
literally in my notes.
I,
I think Bowie is more than the sum of his parts, and he's as an artist, he encompasses high art with Life on Mars, and you know, there's also Tin Machine at the other end of the spectrum. He's Jared the Goblin King. He's Philip Jeffries in everyone's favorite film, Twin Peaks: Firewalk with Me. He's done sort of moronic rock stompers. He's done impenetrably artistic, ethereal music, and no one can like all of it, as John just said. But surely everyone can find some part of it that will pierce them in the heart and live inside them forever. Because in terms of being like a cultural monolith, I can't think of anyone who contains more multitudes than Bowie.
Ryan, tell us what's in your notes then.
Well, you know, the thing is, it's a very deliberate process of reinvention that's successful. Usually, when you've got a musician of this caliber or this scale, their attempts to invent themselves can often be like a desperate attempt to forestall a flagging career, prop up album sales. Whereas David Bowie, as you said, he chooses regeneration. He calculated it. The moment was prepared for, if I can bring that in. And the great thing is, just like everyone's got their favorite doctor or their doctor, everyone's got their Bowie. We've got six people here talking about it, coming at it from different angles. We all agree, as Ian said, he's a cultural monolith, but we're looking at the monolith from different angles and, you know, seeing different things. He's a prism for what we want to get from him to an extent. And I think that's his strength. Could also be a weakness because you're like one period, you might like Ziggy, but not like Thin White Duke. And you may, I don't want to mention Tin Machine again, but I just have. So, but the same thing applies. The same logic applies there. And I think that's an achievement that, as far as I'm aware, no other musician, certainly in the modern era, has really achieved. Other bands and artists have reinvented themselves, but as I said, it's been an act of desperation, not inspiration. Thank you.
And Harry.
Just as a musical journey to go on as a teenager, who was curious about culture and art and visuals and different kinds of music, and was wanting to just be a bit different and not just. Although I was very much enjoying listening to Mel and Rob's Hot 30 Countdown every night on GWRFM, I also wanted to explore the weird and wonderful. And so it was an amazing journey to go on, and to be able to still go on that journey right up until 2016 was amazing. And now I can cherry pick the bits that I like from the journey and revisit them. Also as a gateway to other things. And when you think about the people he's inspired, if Neil Tennant hadn't gone to Ziggy Stardust in 1972, would we have Neil Tennant doing what he does now? As an example, the legacy he's left is not just his own music and style, but also a huge amount of other culture that we can all enjoy as well, I think. And
Right.
dancing in the street, which we let happen.
That's our thoughts on David Bowie then. We'll be back to talk about somebody just a little bit less special next time. Until that happens, I was JR.
I was Harry.
I was Ian.
I was John.
I was Ryan.
And I was Simon.
And we will speak again soon.